Good morning. Welcome to the June 21st meeting of the Environmental Resource Committee for the Town of Sunset Beach. We stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is the draft agenda. There is one correction that needs to be made. The Environmental Resource Committee has no decision-making authority, therefore there's no need to have a question of conflict of interest.
Sorry, I left it in the mailbox.
Okay, but then there is a reference to the Board of Adjustment for the conflict of interest in the minutes, so that needs to be removed.
Right, so you're going to do that under the consent agenda. So you're under the amendment and approval of the agenda right now, not your minutes.
You're right. Thank you. Do we have any amendments that need to be made to the draft agenda?
Move that we accept it as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The draft agenda is approved. Now, moving on to the minutes. The reference to the Board of Adjustment is not correct, and there is no need, I believe, to have a statement of conflict of interest because we have no decision-making authority. So that needs to be removed from the minutes. Are there any other amendments to the meeting minutes that anyone sees that need to be made?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the minutes will be approved as amended. Public comments on agenda items. Pete? No? Old business. July 10th is the next council meeting, and I believe there is a part of the agenda is the ERC first and second quarter report to council. Basically, we've outlined what our priority actions have been for the first and second quarter. First item was the hurricane season resilience program, and we went through lessons learned from Hurricane Ian. The two items that came out of that was the risk of flooding along Lakeshore Drive and Shoreline West, and the other preventive measures that are needed to prevent property damage in the town. We've outlined those to the council. They will question our recommendations. The second item is the Tubbs Inlet program, the research and reporting work that's underway. We've done a lot of work in this area, and we have a report that we'll go over in new business to talk about that. Then we'll talk about the accomplishments that we have done or tried to do, and the plans that we have going forward. The Earth Day Arbor Day event was rained out, but a lot of work was done to prepare for it. We tried to get a community grant from BEMC, but that was turned down. We have to organize ourselves in figure out how to become exhibitors at local markets, and we will be an exhibitor at Sunset at Sunset. We have to continue with recycling education and promotion, and we'll work with staff to get a Tree City USA application submitted by December 1st. And the final item is the Homegrown National Parks Initiative that we have to come up with some plans for recommendations around. Are there any other things that we need to include in this report to council?
I just wanted to know what the results were of the transportation meeting they had, because I couldn't attend, it was,
I wasn't there either.
okay.
By transportation meeting, you mean because of the bridge?
No, they were talking about plans for greenways and bike
At
lanes.
that Greater
and-
Grand Strand
And,
Oh, yeah.
transportation meeting.
It's my understanding that they took a survey, but they haven't published the results of that survey.
okay.
So they were gathering inputs on it, but I'm not aware of any plans that have been changed as a result of that.
Okay.
So we will we'll present this report to council, and we'll get their feedback about what they think our priorities should be, and how we can work better together going forward. Moving on to the subcommittee discussions. The first climate subcommittee, we'll talk about the shoaling and Tubbs Inlet and Jenks Creek. Steve, you want to review your report?
Right. Well, remember in the April meeting, I gave a brief summary of what we had discovered early on. So that includes, that's the first part of this report. Then subsequent to that, we had Mickey Cochran do an aerial videos, and the drone videos were very informative, and that was mentioned at the May meeting. So we talked about that briefly. So what I want to do is now we've compiled a report based on the information that we have to date that included all, the looking at aerial photographs from over the years, the boat trip that we made, speaking with the charter captains, the aerial video, and that's all covered in this report. There's some things that kind of stood out to me about that. One thing was the charter captain talked about how bad the shoaling was getting in the area that was dredged, but Mickey Cochran's video showed that dredged area in Jenks Creek was still pretty well defined. So I didn't see that there was it wasn't sanded in completely yet. But what's noticeable there, though, is that the dredging really didn't quite go far enough to remove the sandbar that's on the north end of it. The other thing that stood out to me, and it's in the report, is that the salt marsh grass that has taken hold in the middle of the bay, essentially, but now it's under a sandbar. That indicates to me that that's very stable. It's still accumulating sediment. That then in the salt marsh growing there, that's going to cause more sediment to be deposited. So it's a marsh island that's growing, and it's right really across from the Palm Cove docks. So that's interesting. The other thing we learned from it from the captains, but also from the aerial video, was how bad the shoaling is at those new docks in Palm Cove. They're basically useless. As a matter of fact, when fishermen are navigating the area, they end up going really close to shore and going underneath the docks in order to get to the other side. You can't. It's impassable any other way. And that's shown in figure 2 here in the report. And you want to take a look at that, Steve? The other things,
Under these docks here.
yeah, you got to see where that is. You go behind the
Oh,
the
wow.
house. That's where the channel is. I watched somebody do it. I took my boat out there to confirm that that was what was going on, and that's what's going on. And another thing that stood out to me was that in the aerial video was that there seems to be a bar building up. Mostly, in a normal situation, there will be a bar offshore of a mouth of an inlet. But this one seems to be very coming ashore more or less, and then really disrupting the gorge of the inlet. And that's shown in what is that, figure 5. So that to me is very interesting. But some other information is included in this report that we got since the May meeting, and that was John found this article in the Brunswick Beacon that Ocean Isle Beach is doing a cost study for dredging Jinks Creek at the east end of the creek channel. So they are planning, or hopefully will do, some dredging in Jinks Creek along the back of Ocean Isle Beach, which the predominant flow was it on the ebb. We decided is through Jinks Creek along that area.
Well, the dominant flow for both the flood tide and the ebb tide
Flood is in that area,
is from the east end.
right?
Is from the eastern channels.
So that will just get stronger once this is dredged, if it in fact happens.
Well, the other thing to remember is that we're seeing this shoaling on Jinks Creek behind Sunset Beach, and Ocean Isle Beach is experiencing shoaling in the Jinks Creek behind Ocean Isle Beach Island. So there is a lot less flushing flow through the system than there has been historically.
Right.
And,
Yeah, that's pretty obvious in the aerial video.
Yeah, when you see the aerial of the mouth of the channel at the ocean, there's a buildup of sand in the inlet. And those are not good signs.
Well, it's I would classify it as interesting.
Yeah.
I'll try not to ascribe bad or good to it. So anyways, the information's been compiled, and then this report was sent to Sea Grant. I think John wants to pick up now to talk about our meeting with Sea Grant.
Yeah, I guess first I want to thank Steve for his reaching out to the charter captains and arranging the boat tour through the Jinks Creek, and we were able to make contact with Mickey, and he's provided us with the drone video at low tide, which was very informative. And we put all this together and have provided it to North Carolina Sea Grant. We had a meeting with Marika.
Right.
Yeah. I'm terrible with-
Rico.
Mariko Polk. She is the specialist for for North Carolina Sea Grant. And she came down and we talked to her. We went over all this information. And she's gone back and started doing some analysis for us. And hopefully that will tell us just how much change has taken place in Jinks Creek, both horizontally and vertically, since basically going back to around 2014. The docks at Palm Cove were built and in place in 2017. It's when they first show up on the pictures. So we have a good we have a good timeline and a couple good markers on the timeline to try to relate changes to the presence of the dock in the system. And we'll see what the data shows us that the impact is. But since 2014, 2015, when the conditions in the Jenks Creek and the inlet were pretty stable, there have been a lot of big changes. The most noticeable one is the growth of the spit coming up from the east end of Sunset Beach. If you look at the maps over a period of time, the dominant flow through Tubbs Inlet now comes from behind Ocean Isle Beach, where historically it's come from behind Sunset Beach. And we're trying to get this information all put together and figure out what it means, and then we'll make a report to council with the story that we get and with some recommendations, hopefully, on what we can do. As far as I know, there's been no action taken between Sunset Beach and the Palm Cove Homeowners Association on the proposal they made to dredge Jenks Creek. So we'll have to see where that goes to. Are there any questions about this? We're right in the middle of this. We don't have a conclusion on this. It's easy to jump to some conclusions, but we're trying to avoid doing that. But I think we have an expert group of helpers with North Carolina Sea Grant to give us some good information that is based on expert opinion, not Steve's opinion or my opinion.
Well, one thing that came from our meeting that I found encouraging was that it's one thing that we can look at an aerial photo and just see the extent, the two-dimensional extent of a sandbar, but the information on the height and the buildup is available from satellite imagery, and Rico knows how to get at it. So that'll be very informative.
Yeah, Mariko is going to be a big help to us.
How are those charter captains coping in the meantime?
Well, this is just one of the
Little River
areas that
Inlet.
they can go fish.
So they just go out a different route?
Little River Inlet,
Oh,
probably.
they don't necessarily go in the ocean through this way. Matter of fact, I would say almost no one uses that for
Did they used
going to
to?
the ocean. Oh, yes. Historically,
So they're just going a different route now because this isn't available.
they can't use it. You can go out to Charlotte Inlet, which it's got its own challenges, but Little River Inlet is wide and deep. So,
For now.
well, there is a shoal building up in the back of Little River Inlet, but I think there's still plenty of room back there. Get around it.
You got a feel for them when you look at those pictures. It's pretty clear that they can't get through there.
Well,
Well,
not
that's
at
at
low
low tide too. When you get at high tide, you have a little more water.
Still got to be awfully careful.
Yes, especially since it changes frequently.
When the captain took us on a boat tour, we were there 2.5 hours before low tide, and we were dragging bottom in some areas. So you have to be very knowledgeable about where you're going, or you're going to get stuck.
Well, they haven't dredged the intercoastal waterway in years, right? So there's spots in the intercoastal waterway too. I don't know. The government used to dredge intercoastal. They don't do it anymore. Or
Well, I
maybe
think they will if it needed to be.
For navigation purposes, the thing is
Yeah.
that as it shoals a little bit on the sides, the sediment starts to build up. So yeah, people's docks are useless at low tide, and
right.
you know, even the marina that I keep my boat in, there's times with extreme low tides where the boats are sitting on the bottom. So it is what it
Not
is at
good.
this point.
By the
Other-
way, I missed some of these meetings because of obvious stuff I dealt with recently. So if you guys have more meetings, just let me know. I can go, you know.
I appreciate all the work you've done on this. What a great start.
Well, it's fun too to
It's been fun,
play with it.
and
So-
we're learning as much as we can from every experience we have.
So I'm just curious, like when Sea Grant looks at it, I haven't studied what they do. What are the outcomes from like Sea Grant? What can will they provide grants? These are called Sea Grant, but I was just curious if they look at it and go, oh, this, you know, do they say what the outcome would be and what they would recommend?
Well, what we've got so far, and we have to send you a copy of it. And I apologize for not doing that yet, but they've done a analysis of the shoreline erosion along Palm Cove
Okay.
and showed how it has eroded towards the ocean over time. And now they're trying to get the data together to do a vertical analysis to show the buildup of sand in the channels through Jenks Creek.
Okay.
And we haven't seen that yet. We expect that to be very informative.
When they do that channel, they also look at the dunes themselves because every hurricane that comes through there is knocking out parts of that. And, you know, you want to be sure we still got enough protection there. For the
Well, the
island and
dunes,
town.
I guess
I just didn't know if they're looking at height art, can they also take a look at what the dunes are doing and if some of that's eroding away?
we haven't asked them to do that. We've just been trying to look at the buildup of sand in the channels.
I think that's probably information that might be available if we asked for it.
That'd be kind of nice to see.
But
Because there's such a protection and they've been taking
my
abuse of-
sense is that since the beaches that we have are accreting sand, sand is building up constantly. We're not losing sand from our beach. That as the wind carries the dried sand up, those dunes get added onto constantly.
Well, it's easy for us to assume that, but you'd like to know if that's really happening. If the dunes are replenished and strong enough.
There's a gap on Bird Island. I walked the other day that goes probably a quarter of a mile.
Is that where Mad Inlet used to be?
Maybe, but I noticed it was taken out after Ian.
I watched it being taken out during Ian because it's directly across from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Sea Grant, I like I said, I should probably study their purpose. When they do a report, do they say like, okay, the inlet's gonna fill in?
I don't know that that's something that we can know.
Yeah.
I
I
think,
mean, what is their overall purpose?
well, it's
Their overall purpose is to help us understand what's going on out there
Okay.
and to guide us into what the possibilities might be. They're not going to make an authoritative declaration
Right.
of an endpoint. But they have a lot of scientific and engineering knowledge and information available to them that we don't,
Okay.
that they can look at and say, okay, here's what we see.
Okay.
So
yeah, their motto is bringing science to the shore. So,
Okay.
so they are scientists that can help us deal with our problems.
and we've just started working with them. We've had one meeting. We've shared a number of correspondence with them, and so far it's all been very positive.
I'm sure they're great.
Are they working with Ocean Isle Beach? Do you know?
I don't know, and I don't think so.
No reason why they wouldn't, though, if they were asked.
If they were asked, they would do that. Yes.
Just since both towns are looking at Jinks Creek, which is
Well, Ocean Isle Beach has engaged the coastal protection engineering firm, made the presentation to council.
to do it.
And
take a look.
they were also the same firm that did the engineering and project management on the terminal groin that's
At
on
OIG Footing.
the east end. So
Well, I guess we're all facing some common problems along the coast.
So far the terminal groin's doing well, correct? I mean, last time we spoke.
terminal groin is acting as it was
was okay.
expected to act.
Right.
It's only been a little over a year that it's been in place, so it's a little early to
Celebrate.
jump to any conclusions about it. It didn't take them long to start building houses, though, out on the east end. It's, I wish them more luck than Palm Cove.
Mm.
All right, next item is the Green Subcommittee verbal report.
Green Subcommittee has not been particularly active. Rich there were 3 members. Rich has left the committee, and Mila's out of town. So she and I had talked about what we might need to be doing for Sunset at Sunset if we work on that. We're not sure if that should be a green item, a committee item. For that. At any rate, we haven't been too active. I'm the only person.
Okay.
So
I think we need to look at the membership of the Green Committee, Subcommittee, with Rich gone and Mila being gone a lot this summer. We need to
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Get
It'd
some
be
more
nice to be back
involvement.
to the 3 members. That was helpful.
yeah. There was one person who provided an application to become a member of the ERC in the recent posting period, and hopefully that will get reviewed, and the person will be interviewed and appointed by council sometime soon.
We are actually still accepting applications until the 30th of June.
Oh, you are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, possibly at our next meeting, we might have more news on that, and can look at maybe reforming the committee.
Well, I think when we get a new member, then we can
Yeah.
look at.
I guess that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That maybe by our next meeting. So that could go on our next. Well, I'm sure we'll be looking at our committee at the next agenda.
I went to Spain to visit my daughter for her birthday, but it's an unusual thing, but I did go because I hadn't seen my daughter in 6 months. But anyway, when I was walking on the beach, they have an extensive recycling program there. So not that we could go that far here, but they have 4 containers, on the beach, one for like organics and plastic, and they have these giant containers in all the neighborhoods. I mean, I know we wouldn't get there, but I think I can share that information with you guys just out of, it's Europe's a lot more progressive, I think, with recycling than the United States as a whole, but I just noticed some things they do we don't do here. There's no garbage laying around anywhere. which is nice. There's the littering guilt is a lot higher in Spain than it is in the United States.
Okay, so we'll reform the committees after the new members. New member. About recycling.
Well, Don Eggert couldn't be here today, but I asked him if he had any new things to report, and we haven't. I think the last time I talked to him about recycling, we were trying to focus on what we might do in terms of education at the markets this summer, but I don't know if we're getting too far out into the summer to have much impact there. This year might be something to look at for next year.
Well,
I know that was old business from our last agenda, but we're kind of talking about participating at the summer markets.
right. We should have had this on that on this agenda too. Recycling education and the climate changing information are the two big topics.
Yeah,
Be
and those seem to be that seems to me to be a good place for that, where you have a lot of public and there's public interest and they've got the time, they're out there. So I think that'll be the next thing for that recycling will be working on. I know Chad's not here. I think he was looking at what kinds of things we might be able to get in terms of equipment to go to the market or other sites as they become available.
yeah.
So maybe that can go back on next meeting's agenda.
It will have to be part of July. Are there any other things anyone wants to be discussed? We've covered the agenda. Public comment? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Or a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
We are adjourned.